General Samuel Wright stood tall on the metal platform. His hands were bound behind his back. His face showed no fear, only quiet anger. Thousands of aliens watched from the grand plaza of the imperial capital. Billions more viewed the broadcast across the galaxy. The 7-foot-tall imperial executor read from a glowing tablet. Samuel Wright, General of the Human Defense Forces, you have been found guilty of war crimes against the peaceful citizens of the Galactic Empire. The sentence is death. Wright raised his eyes to the camera drones hovering nearby. He knew his final moments would be seen by everyone on Earth and the human colonies. I am innocent, he said, his voice steady. Remember this day. Remember what the Empire truly is. The executor nodded to the guards. They placed the noose around Wright's neck. The platform dropped away. General Samuel Wright, hero of the Orion campaigns and defender of the human colonies, was dead. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Collins turned away from the screen. Her hands gripped the edge of her desk so hard her knuckles turned white. Wright had been her mentor, her friend. For 15 years, he had guided her career from young lieutenant to admiral. Now he was gone. Her aide, a young lieutenant, stood at the door. Admiral, the president is calling an emergency meeting. Tell him I'll be there, she said. She looked back at the screen where the imperial news was already moving on to other stories, as if a great man hadn't just been murdered. The Empire had made it clear. Humans were second-class citizens. 200 years ago, humans had joined the Galactic Empire with great hope. They were a young species, eager to learn from the older races that dominated galactic politics. The Empire had seemed benevolent then, offering protection and technology. Now humans knew better. The official meeting room at United Earth headquarters was packed. President Patrick Miller looked grim as Admiral Collins entered. Representatives from Mars, Europa, and the outer colonies filled the seats. Their faces showed shock, anger, and fear. The Empire claims General Wright ordered attacks on civilian targets in the Rigel system. The president said, "We know this is a lie. Wright was inspecting our defense forces on Proxima Centauri when those attacks happened." "It's a frame job," said Collins. "The Empire fears us. Human territories have grown too influential. They want to make an example of us." The diplomatic minister raised his hand. "We filed formal protests with the Imperial Council. They won't even review our evidence. Evidence doesn't matter to them," Collins said. She pulled up images on the main screen. "These are the ruins the Empire claims Wright destroyed. Look at the weapon signatures. Those are Imperial heavy cannons, not human weapons." "Why would they attack their own people?" asked the Mars representative. "To blame us. To justify whatever comes next," Collins answered. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. "We should prepare for the worst," the president finally said. "Admiral Collins, what's the status of our fleet?" "Officially, we have 240 warships of various classes. Unofficially," she glanced around the room, "there are the Shadow Fleet projects. Ships we built in secret. Technologies we developed that the Empire doesn't know about." The president nodded slowly. "Keep those preparations going. Double the efforts if possible. But we'll try diplomacy first." Collins wanted to argue but kept quiet. She had served with Wright long enough to know when battles were fought with weapons and when they were fought with words. This would eventually come to weapons. The Empire had made its intentions clear. As the meeting continued, Collins thought about Wright's last words. Remember what the Empire truly is. She would remember. And she would make sure the Empire remembered what humans truly were too. Not the peaceful colonists they pretended to be. Not the junior partners in galactic politics. But warriors, survivors, and very Admiral Lisa Collins met Major Eric Martinez in the basement of an old government building. They chose this place because it had no electronic monitoring. The Empire had eyes and ears everywhere. "What did you find?" Collins asked. Martinez placed a small device on the table. A hologram appeared, showing Imperial military files. "It took 3 weeks of hacking, but I got in. These are the real attack orders for the Rigel bombings. Collins studied the documents. Her face hardened as she read. The orders came directly from Grand Admiral X4X. He planned the civilian attacks himself. Yes, and there's more. Martinez swiped to another file. This is a report from 6 months ago. The Imperial High Command is worried about human expansion. We're growing too fast, building too many ships. They called us a future threat that needs to be contained. So they framed Wright to send us a message. Collins felt cold anger spreading through her chest. They killed the best of us to frighten the rest. They're afraid of us, Martinez said. Humans have only been part of the Empire for 2 centuries, but we've colonized more planets in that time than most species do in 1,000 years. Collins nodded. Humans had always pushed boundaries. While other species expanded cautiously, humans rushed forward, building and exploring at a pace that made the older races uncomfortable. We need to take this to President Miller, she said. 2 days later, they sat in the president's secure office. He watched the evidence with a grave expression. If we go public with this, the Empire will deny everything, the president said. They control the galactic communications networks. Most species will never see this evidence. We don't need to convince the galaxy, Collins replied. We need to convince our people. Humans need to know what we're really dealing with. The president stood and walked to the window. Earth's gleaming cities spread out below. 200 years of imperial technology had transformed the planet. If we challenge the Empire openly, we risk everything. They have 1 million warships. We have a few hundred. They think we have a few hundred, Martinez corrected. Project Shadowforge has built another 500 in secret, and our ships are better, faster, more advanced. Even so, it would be suicide, the president argued. Collins leaned forward. What's the alternative? Wait for them to pick us off one by one. Right was just the beginning. They're testing us, seeing how much we'll take before we fight back. The president sighed heavily. I need more. We need absolute proof that the Empire is moving against us, not just theories. Martinez exchanged a look with Collins. There is one way to get that proof. The Imperial Central Archive on Proxima Station. If I can get in there, I can find their actual plans for humanity. That's a suicide mission, the president said. Not for me, Martinez replied. Before I joined military intelligence, I worked with the Imperial Archive Corps. I know their systems, their schedules. 1 week later, Martinez found himself crawling through maintenance tunnels in Proxima Station. His heart pounded as he bypassed security systems and slipped past alien guards. The Central Archive was a vast data repository. Martinez plugged in a specialized device that searched for specific keywords. Human, containment. Right. Alarm suddenly blared. Someone had discovered the intrusion. Martinez grabbed his device and ran. Imperial guards fired energy weapons that scorched the walls around him. He made it to the escape route. A small maintenance ship docked at a service bay. As he flew away from the station, Imperial fighters pursued him. His ship was hit multiple times, systems failing. Martinez sent a tight beam transmission to Earth, containing everything he'd found. Then he activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. If the Empire caught him alive, they would extract everything he knew. His last thought before the explosion was that it had been worth it. The evidence was damning. The Empire had plans to subjugate all human worlds. General Wright's execution was just the first step. On Earth, Admiral Collins received Martinez's transmission. She closed her eyes briefly when she realized he wasn't coming back. Then she took the data straight to the president. The time for talking was over. The United Earth Council chamber was packed with representatives from every human colony. The mood was tense. President Miller stood at the center, his face grim. Major Martinez gave his life to bring us this information, he said. The large screen behind him showed Imperial documents. The Empire plans to reduce all human worlds to direct control. They will replace our governments with Imperial governors. They will take our ships. They will draft our children into their armies, and any who resist will be executed, like General Wright. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Mars representative stood. How do we know these documents are real? This could be faked. Admiral Collins stepped forward. The authentication codes are genuine. And there's this. She played a recording. It showed Grand Admiral X4X speaking to the Emperor. The humans multiply too quickly, the alien admiral said, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Their technology advances too fast. In 50 years, they could challenge us. We must crush them now, while we still hold the advantage. The Emperor's tentacled face nodded. Proceed with the plan. The execution of their general was a good first step. Now we will see if they have the courage to fight, or if they will submit. The recording ended. The chamber was silent. They killed Wright as a test, Collins said. They want to see if we'll accept their boot on our neck. Catherine Ross, the chief diplomat, rose from her seat. We should still try peaceful means. We could appeal to the other species in the Empire. Many would support us if they knew the truth. The Empire controls all galactic communications, Collins replied. And most species fear the Empire too much to help us. Then we should offer concessions, Ross argued. Limit our expansion. Reduce our fleet. Show we're not a threat. Collins slammed her hand on the table. They don't want concessions. They want submission. They want us to kneel before them and accept whatever scraps they offer. President Miller raised his hand for quiet. We have a choice to make. We can try to appease the Empire, or we can fight for our independence. The debate lasted for hours. Some feared war with the mighty Empire. Others argued that freedom was worth any price. Finally, President Miller called for a vote. Those in favor of sending a final diplomatic message, demanding justice for General Wright and recognition of human sovereignty. Nearly every hand went up. And if they refuse, asked the Europa representative. Then we declare independence, Miller said, and we prepare for war. The vote passed. The message was sent to the imperial capital. 3 days later, the Emperor's response arrived. A short video showed the imperial throne room. The Emperor's massive form loomed over a human messenger. The Empire does not negotiate with lesser species, the Emperor said. Return to your worlds and prepare for imperial administrators to arrive. Your fleets will be absorbed into our navy. Your resources will serve the greater good of the Empire. The messenger tried to speak. An imperial guard struck him down. The video ended. The United Earth Council met again, this time with military leaders present. They've made their position clear, President Miller said. They expect us to surrender without a fight. He looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. I say we show them how humans respond to threats. The vote for war was unanimous. That evening, President Miller addressed all human worlds. Trillions watched as he spoke. 200 years ago, we joined the Galactic Empire as partners. Today, we learned we were never seen as equals, only as servants. The Empire executed General Wright to frighten us. They planned to take our freedom bit by bit, hoping we wouldn't notice until it was too late. He paused, his expression firm. Today, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Empire. We declare ourselves independent and free. And to the empire that fought to enslave us, we say this: we will not go quietly. We will not surrender. For the murder of General Wright, for the planned subjugation of our people, we declare total war against the Galactic Empire. Across human space, military bases erupted into action. Ships that had been hiding powered up their engines. Weapons that had been developed in secret were loaded onto vessels. Operation Righteous Vengeance had begun. The Imperial border station near Alpha Centauri was quiet. The alien guards were bored. Humans never caused trouble. The station commander was watching entertainment videos when the alarms blared. Unidentified ships approaching, an officer reported. They're not responding to hails. The commander rushed to the control room. The scanner showed 5 vessels moving toward the station. Magnify, he ordered. The screen showed sleek black ships unlike any he had seen before. No markings, no identification signals. "Raise shields," the commander ordered. Too late. The mysterious ships fired blue energy beams that cut through the station's defenses like they weren't there. Within minutes, the Imperial station was a cloud of debris. Similar attacks happened at 20 other Imperial outposts at the same moment. The human fleet had struck first, and hard. On the bridge of the destroyer Vengeance, Captain Daniel Warren watched the confirmation signals from other attack groups. "Phase 1 complete, Admiral," he reported to Collins via secure channel. "All targets destroyed. 0 casualties on our side." "Excellent," Collins replied from her command ship. "Proceed to Phase 2. Warren nodded to his crew. The Vengeance and its sister ships accelerated toward the Imperial fortress world of Proxima Prime. For decades, this had been the Empire's main military base near human space. The Imperial commanders there were already scrambling fighters in response to the border station attacks. They never expected a direct assault on their fortress. "Stealth systems engage," Warren's tactical officer announced. The Vengeance and the other ships in its group vanished from Imperial sensors. Invisible to the enemy, they slipped past the outer defenses. Warren studied the tactical display, showing the massive Imperial dreadnought in orbit around Proxima Prime. It was the largest warship in this sector, 3 miles long and bristling with weapons. "Target the dreadnought's engine cores and command center," Warren ordered. "All ships, fire on my mark." The human ships decloaked simultaneously and fired. The dreadnought's shields flared and failed under the concentrated assault. The mighty vessel shuddered as precision strikes disabled its engines and weapons. Before the Imperial crew could respond, human boarding parties teleported aboard. The battle lasted just 20 minutes. When it ended, the Imperial crew was locked in their quarters, and human officers controlled the giant ship. Warren walked onto the dreadnought's bridge and sat in the commander's chair. "Admiral Collins, the Imperial's flagship is ours." He couldn't keep the pride from his voice. "We've captured their tactical database intact." Across Imperial space, reports flooded in of human attacks. The Empire had expected protests, perhaps small skirmishes, not this coordinated assault with technology they didn't know humans possessed. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Xalkresh summoned Grand Admiral Zexvorax. "Explain this," the Emperor demanded, his tentacles writhing in anger. "You said the humans were primitive. You said they had only a small fleet." Zexvorax bowed, his 6 eyes downcast. "They must have hidden their true capabilities, Your Majesty. The ships they're using now were unknown to our intelligence services. They have captured a dreadnought," the Emperor roared. "They have destroyed 20 border stations. This is not the work of a primitive species." "I will crush this rebellion," Zexvorax promised. "I will assemble our main battle fleet and—" "You will do nothing," the Emperor interrupted. "You have failed me once. I am taking personal command of this situation." Back in human space, Admiral Collins addressed the captains of the human fleet. "The first strikes have succeeded beyond our expectations. The Empire was not ready for us. But that will change. They will regroup, and they will come for us with everything they have." She looked at the faces on her screen. Many were young. Some looked scared. But all were determined. "Remember why we fight," she said. "Remember General Wright. Remember what the Empire planned for our people. We strike not just for vengeance, but for our very survival." The captains saluted. The human counterattack had begun brilliantly. But the real war was just starting. 1 month after the first human strikes, the Empire finally responded. 5,000 Imperial warships jumped into the New Eden colony system. The human defenders numbered only 200 ships. "Defensive Formation Alpha," ordered the human commander. "Hold as long as you can." The battle was short and brutal. Human ships fought bravely, but they were overwhelmed. As the defense crumbled, Imperial troops landed on the planet's surface. Marine Commander Olivia Nelson led the ground forces defending the main settlement. Civilians to the underground shelters, she ordered over the emergency broadcast. All military personnel to your assigned positions. Nelson watched from her command post as Imperial dropships darkened the sky. Thousands of alien soldiers landed outside the city perimeter. They were Krell warriors, 8 feet tall with 4 arms, bred by the Empire for war. Let them come to us, Nelson told her officers. We fight from prepared positions. The Krell charged forward, confident in their superior numbers. They ran straight into carefully planned killing zones. Human defenders used the terrain and prison traps to slow the advance. Automated defense turrets cut down hundreds of Krell. Nelson moved among her troops, encouraging them, directing their fire. Hold the line, she kept saying. Every minute we fight gives more civilians time to escape. For hours, the humans held back the Imperial forces, but more dropships kept arriving. The defensive line began to break. Fall back to position Beta, Nelson ordered. Her troops retreated in good order to the next defensive line. A lieutenant ran up to her, his face dirty and bloodied. Commander, they've landed forces behind us. They're heading for the civilian shelters. Nelson didn't hesitate. Alpha Company with me. She led 50 Marines through side streets to intercept the flanking enemies. They arrived just as Krell warriors were breaking into a civilian shelter. Nelson and her Marines opened fire, drawing the Krell away from the civilians. Get those people out the back exit, she shouted to the shelter guards. Move them to the emergency ships. The fighting was intense. Nelson took a plasma burn to her shoulder but kept fighting. Her Marines fought like demons, knowing what would happen to the civilians if they failed. Eventually, word came that the evacuation ships had launched. Mission accomplished, Nelson told her surviving Marines. Now we get out too. But as they tried to reach their own escape vessels, a new wave of Imperial troops cut them off. Nelson and her Marines were surrounded. Meanwhile, in the Sears mining system, Admiral Collins received the news of New Eden's fall. Her face was grim as she spoke to President Miller via secure channel. New Eden is lost, she reported. Commander Nelson and her forces are listed as missing in action. The civilians mostly escaped, at least. This is just the beginning, the president said. Imperial forces are attacking 3 other colonies. They're bringing everything they have against us now. Collins nodded. We expected this. We hurt them badly in the first attacks. Now they're showing their true strength. Can we hold them off? The president asked. Collins hesitated. Not everywhere. We don't have enough ships yet. We need to choose our battles carefully. What about Ceres? The president asked. It's one of our oldest mining colonies. We're evacuating the civilians now, Collins said. But I propose we use Ceres for Operation Sunburst. The president's eyes widened. Are you sure that's necessary? It will delay their advance by months. Give us time to build more ships, train more crews. After a long pause, the president nodded. Do it. 3 days later, the Imperial fleet arrived at Ceres. They found the colony apparently abandoned. As their ships moved in to secure the valuable mining facilities, sensors detected unusual energy readings. Too late, they realized the trap. The humans had rigged the entire asteroid with experimental quantum bombs. The resulting explosion destroyed not just Ceres, but 300 Imperial warships. Back on Earth, Admiral Collins watched the reports with mixed feelings. They had struck a significant blow, but at a terrible cost. Ceres had been home to generations of miners. Now it was just debris floating in space. This is the kind of war it's going to be, she said quietly to herself. God help us all. Captain Daniel Warren sat in a dark corner of an alien bar on the frontier world Kelos. This planet existed on the edge of Imperial space, a meeting place for smugglers and outcasts. Warren wore a hood to hide his human features. He was waiting for someone. The bar was filled with various alien species, many drinking substances that would kill a human. Warren sipped water that he pretended was alcohol. A tall, thin alien with pale blue skin slid into the seat across from him. This was a Korvax, a species known for their scientific minds. "You're taking a big risk coming here," the Korvax said quietly. "We all take risks in war," Warren replied. "Are you scientist, Traz?" The Korvax nodded. "I represent a group within the Empire who share certain concerns about the current conflict." "You mean you don't want to be on the losing side when this is over?" Warren said bluntly. Traz's large eyes blinked slowly. "The Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. Many species have challenged it. All have failed. Humans are different. Perhaps your initial strikes were impressive, but the Empire has millions of ships, hundreds of subject worlds. You cannot win." Warren leaned forward. "Then why are you here?" Traz looked around nervously. "Because the Empire has changed. Emperor Xal Kresh is not like his predecessors. He sees all non-imperial species as tools to be used and discarded. The Korvax were once respected advisors. Now we are little more than slaves. And you think helping humans will improve your situation?" Traz pulled out a small data device. "This contains information about a new imperial weapon being developed at Facility Omega. If deployed, it could destroy entire planets." Warren took the device carefully. "Why give this to us?" "Because the first targets will be human worlds. But we Korvax will be next, then the Brill, then others. The Emperor fears any species with the potential to challenge imperial rule." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of heavy boots. Imperial troopers entered the bar, scanning faces. "They're looking for me," Traz whispered. "I must have been followed." Warren assessed the situation quickly. There were 6 troopers, heavily armed. "Back door." "No, they'll have it covered." Warren touched a hidden communicator. "Eagle to nest. Need immediate extraction. Sending coordinates." The Imperial troopers were moving through the bar, checking identifications. Warren and Traz had seconds at most. Suddenly, the lights went out. In the darkness, Warren grabbed Traz's arm and pulled him toward the kitchen. They burst through the doors as plasma shots hit the wall behind them. They ran through the kitchen and out into an alley. Imperial troopers shouted behind them. More appeared at the far end of the alley. "We're trapped," Traz said, panic in his voice. Warren looked up. A small black ship appeared overhead, hovering silently. A hatch opened in its belly. "Jump." Warren pushed Traz up, and then leaped himself. They were caught by a gravity beam that pulled them into the ship. As soon as they were aboard, the vessel accelerated straight up, breaking atmosphere in seconds. "That was too close," Warren said as they reached orbit. An Imperial cruiser appeared, moving to intercept them. The human ship fired its engines, opening a jump point to faster-than-light travel. Before the Imperial cruiser could react, they were gone. Back on Earth, Ambassador John Miller read the report about Warren's mission. "So the Korvax are willing to help us," he said to Admiral Collins. "This could change everything." Collins nodded. "If their information is accurate, and if there are other species who might join us, the Empire isn't just our enemy anymore. They're becoming the enemy of all free peoples." Miller studied the data about the Korvax homeworld. Their planet has valuable resources and advanced research facilities. If we can establish a formal alliance, the Empire will crush them. Collins interrupted. "We've seen how they respond to defiance." "Then we need to protect them," Miller said firmly. "Show the galaxy that allying with humans means something." Collins considered this. "It's a risk. Dividing our forces could weaken our defense of human worlds. But gaining allies could be our only path to victory," Miller countered. "We can't fight the entire Empire alone." The door opened and President Miller entered. His face was grim. "We just received word," he said. "Grand Admiral Zexforax has been spotted near the Korvax homeworld with a massive fleet. It seems their help to us has been discovered." Admiral Collins stared at the tactical display showing the Korvax homeworld. A fleet of Imperial warships surrounded the blue-green planet. At the center of the enemy formation floated a massive ship unlike any she had seen before. "That's it," said Captain Warren, pointing to the strange vessel. "According to Traz, that's the planet killer weapon." The command room was silent. Humanity's top military leaders had gathered to witness what came next. "Can't we do something?" asked Ambassador Miller. "The Korvax helped us." Collins shook her head. "Our nearest forces are 3 days away. Whatever happens will be over in hours." On the screen, they watched as the enormous Imperial weapon moved into firing position. Its front section opened like a flower, revealing the glowing core. "They're going to make an example of the Korvax," Warren said quietly, "to warn other species not to help us." A beam of intense white energy shot from the weapon. It struck the Korvax planet, boring through the crust. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the planet's surface began to crack. Massive fissures spread across continents. The oceans boiled away into space. In less than 5 minutes, the Korvax homeworld shattered like glass. 8 billion lives ended in an instant. Collins turned away from the screen, her face pale. "Send the recording to every human world," she ordered. "Everyone needs to see what we're fighting against." President Miller addressed the United Earth Council the next day. The chamber was hushed as he played the recording of the Korvax world's destruction. "This is what awaits any who oppose the Empire," he said when it was over. "This is what awaits Earth if we fail." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each council member. "The time for half measures is over. I am authorizing Operation Final Strike." Admiral Collins outlined the plan. "Our intelligence indicates the Empire has built 3 of these planet killer weapons. The one we saw, plus 2 more under construction at a secret facility in the Antares system. We will throw everything we have at destroying this facility and the weapons. This will leave our colonies vulnerable," warned a council member. "If these weapons are completed, no colony will be safe anyway," Collins replied. "This is our only chance." 3 days later, the largest human fleet ever assembled jumped into the Antares system. 500 warships against 3,000 Imperial vessels guarding the weapon facility. Collins stood on the bridge of her flagship. "All ships, commence attack. Remember the Korvax. Remember General Wright." The human ships accelerated toward the Imperial line. The space between the fleets lit up with energy weapons and missiles. Ships on both sides exploded into clouds of debris. On the ground, Commander Olivia Nelson led a special forces team toward the weapon facility. She had survived the fall of New Eden, escaping with a handful of Marines. Now they had volunteered for the most dangerous mission of the war. "Plant charges at these points," she told her team, showing them a holographic map of the facility. "We need to destroy the core reactors." They moved through the massive complex, fighting Imperial guards at every turn. Nelson's shoulder still ached from her wound on New Eden, but she pushed forward. In space, the battle reached its peak. Human ships broke through the Imperial line at great cost. Collins watched as her fleet took heavy losses. "We're down to 60% strength," reported her tactical officer. "Keep pressing the attack," Collins ordered. "We need to hold them off until Nelson's team completes their mission." On the facility, Nelson and her Marines reached the main reactor room. They began planting explosive charges while fighting off waves of Imperial soldiers. "Command, this is Nelson. Charges set. We need extraction." "Negative," came the reply. "Area is too hot. Can you reach the emergency pods?" Nelson looked at her team. "Only 3 Marines left out of 12. We'll try. If not, it's been an honor." As they fought their way toward the escape pods, Nelson activated the detonator. Behind them, the charges exploded. The facility began to break apart as chain reactions spread through its structure. In orbit, Collins watched as the massive facility exploded. The 2 planet killer weapons under construction were destroyed. "All ships, emergency jump," she ordered. "Get us out of here." The surviving human vessels, less than half of those that arrived, escaped the Antares system. The cost had been enormous, But the planet killers were destroyed, and humanity had sent a message to the galaxy. They would not be intimidated, not even by the most terrible weapons. 1 year after the destruction of the planet killer weapons, the war had changed. News of the Korvax genocide spread throughout the galaxy, despite Imperial efforts to control information. Other species began to rebel. The Empire found itself fighting on multiple fronts. Admiral Collins stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at a holographic map of the galaxy. Large sections once controlled by the Empire now glowed green, marking territories liberated by the growing alliance. "The Brel have overthrown their Imperial governors," reported Captain Warren. "That's the 5th major species to join us this month." Collins nodded. "And the Imperial core worlds. Their defenses are still strong, but they're stretched thin. The time to strike is now." President Miller joined them via hologram. "Our intelligence reports Emperor Xalkresh has recalled Grand Admiral Zexforax to the capital. They're preparing for a final defense." "This is what we've been waiting for," Collins said. "The chance to bring both of them to justice." The plan was set. The Alliance fleet, now including ships from 12 different species, would attack the Imperial capital world. Human forces would lead the assault. As the massive fleet prepared to jump, Collins addressed the commanders. "Today we fight not just for General Wright, not just for Earth, but for all free peoples of the galaxy. The Empire's reign of terror ends today." The fleet jumped into the Imperial home system. Thousands of ships filled space, the largest battle fleet ever assembled in galactic history. The Imperial defenses were formidable. Orbital platforms, minefields, and the Emperor's personal guard fleet protected the throne world. "All ships, commence attack," Collins ordered. "Follow the plan." The space battle was fiercer than any before. Ships from both sides fell by the hundreds, but the Alliance forces pushed forward, their resolve unbreakable. On the ground, Commander Olivia Nelson led a special team toward the Imperial Palace. She had survived the Antares mission, rescued by a daring extraction team. Now she had one final mission. "The palace defenses are ahead," she told her mixed team of humans and alien allies. "Grand Admiral Zexforax is our primary target." They fought their way through the ornate halls of the palace, past elite Imperial guards. Nelson's team suffered losses, but they pushed on. Finally, they reached the Grand Command Center. Zexforax stood at a control panel, his 6 eyes widening in surprise as they burst in. "Surrender," Nelson ordered, aiming her weapon at him. "I am a Grand Admiral of the Empire," he replied with contempt. "I do not surrender to lesser beings." He reached for a weapon. Nelson fired first. The alien who had ordered General Wright's execution, who had planned humanity's subjugation, fell dead. In orbit, the Alliance fleet had broken through. Collins led a boarding party onto the Emperor's personal vessel. They fought their way to the throne room. Emperor Xalkresh sat on his massive throne, surrounded by guards. "You have caused much trouble, human," he said to Collins. "But the Empire has stood for 10,000 years. It will not fall to you." "The Empire has already fallen," Collins replied. "Your subject worlds have turned against you. Your Grand Admiral is dead. Your fleet is in ruins." The Emperor roared in rage and ordered his guards to attack. The fight was brief but brutal. When it ended, the Emperor was in restraints, his guards defeated. 3 days later, Emperor Xalkresh and the surviving Imperial leaders stood trial before representatives of all the species they had oppressed. The evidence of their crimes was overwhelming. The verdict was unanimous: guilty. Rather than execution, the allied species chose a different punishment. The former rulers were exiled to a remote primitive world, stripped of all technology. 1 month after the victory, Admiral Collins stood at a new memorial on Earth. A statue of General Samuel Wright looked out over a peaceful garden. Beneath it, a simple inscription: "His death sparked the flame of freedom for all." President Miller joined her. "What do you think Wright would say if he could see what his sacrifice led to?" Collins smiled slightly. He would say we did our duty, and then he would remind us that our work is just beginning. Together they looked up at the night sky, where representatives from 100 worlds were meeting on a former Imperial space station. There, they were forming the new Galactic Federation, based not on conquest and fear, but on cooperation and respect. The war that began with one man's unjust death had ended with freedom for countless beings across the stars. And humanity, once a minor species in a vast empire, had found its place as leaders in a new galactic age.